right, so we have 4 of the 6 candidates here with us this evening. I have an opening statement from one of the other candidates who could not be with us this evening, so I'll read that after everybody at the table gets going. So the first question, the forum starts with a 90-second opening statement from each of you. You will receive a notice from the yellow card when you have 15 seconds left. Please use this time to introduce yourself to those in the audience and those who may be watching any video that we take here this evening. Also, if you're in the audience, we ask that you not video unless you have received permission to do so. So we'll start off this evening, and for this is the time that I will ask for a volunteer who wants to go first with your opening statement. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is David Ritchie. I've been in education for 28 years. I was a health and physical education teacher at Audubon High School for 16, along with a varsity basketball coach. I then moved on to be vice principal in Stratford at the Samuel S. Yellen School for 2 years, and then I was the principal at the same school for 8 years. And now I just moved on to be the superintendent of the Estill Manor School District in Atlantic County. I'm running for a 3rd term here for the board, and I'm running basically for one reason. I just want to give back to the community. I feel like I have a lot of knowledge and experience and integrity, and that's basically my platform that I'm running on. But I just feel like I have so much to give, and as I sit in these board meetings, we have a wonderful board, and I just feel like I can give back to the community. I got into this business 28 years ago for kids, and every decision that I make as a board member and as an administrator comes down to one thing: what is the best for kids? Thank you.
Okay. Next, we'll go to Chris.
Sure. Hi, my name is Chris Cook. I've lived in Haddon Township for a little over 20 years now. I have a 9th grader at the high school. I've been involved in volunteering, especially around issues related to education, since my daughter started in 1st grade. I've been the treasurer and president of the Edison PTA. I've been the treasurer and president of the RMS PTA. I'm involved with the Ed Foundation. I'm a trustee of the board, and I've also served on the school board previously. I served 3 years from 2020 to 2022. Just as an update, 2020 was a crazy year to be on the school board. Between having to hire a new superintendent and then all the issues we had going into COVID. So talk about being a brand new school member and jumping in the deep end of the pool. I am looking to run again. I'd like to participate and continue to volunteer and do what's best for our school district. We have a lot of things going on, and it's important to provide as much oversight as we can, especially with the referendum going on, and I want to continue to do that work. So.
Thanks, Chris. Jim, go ahead.
Good morning. Or good morning. Good afternoon. That kind of day. James Lex, Jim Lex. I told Chris Cook that I took this off of the New Jersey Penn write-up. So they asked you for basic information. So 51 years old. I'm the executive director of the Camden County Improvement Authority. I've been married to my lovely wife, Vicki, for 27 years. We have 3 kids, 2 of which have graduated from Haddon Township. One runs for St. Bonaventure, the other one goes to the University of North Carolina at Wilmington. My youngest daughter is a senior. She's actually in homecoming court this weekend, so I'm very proud of that. We moved here for the schools. We moved here 18 years ago for the schools, and it's one of the best decisions we've ever made. I'm very proud of the fact that I get to serve on the board. I'm very honored to have served on the board. And as Chris Cook mentioned, I was president for the board during COVID. So much like dog years, I kind of round those up. I've been on the board now 10. I feel like it's been on 20 in this COVID year. But we were part of the team that hired the superintendent. We got the schools open and kept them open for the best of our ability during COVID. This group, except Dave Ritchie, we had settled 2 teacher contracts. We passed 2 referendums. I've been part of both referendums. It's been very rewarding. I'm very pleased to have done it, and I'd like to continue to do it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. And John.
I'm the newcomer to this group, running for school board. I recently retired. I began my education career teaching in 1984 as a middle school math teacher. spent the last 19 years as a school administrator, primarily in special ed as director of special ed, but as a principal as well. When I retired, I thought my retirement was going to be nice and easy and relaxing, and I spoke with a former superintendent that I admire and appreciate very much, and she said, but you have too much to offer, John. You need to do something for your community. Every time a teacher retires, she said, and she has a flair for the dramatic, that a library burns to the ground. And I took that to heart and had a few days to get my stuff in to be on the school board, but went around, got the signatures that I needed, and got it in for here. I do have a good history in my work history as working to reduce costs, improve programming, increase test scores, not just the bottoms, but the upper ones as well, moving the good ones to the great ones, right? And so that's what I would like to be able to do, share the knowledge that I've gained, the information that I have, and bring it here to Haddon Township.
Thanks, John. All right, next question, and this time, Chris, we're going to start with you with this one. Our schools continue to face numerous challenges, from state funding to state mandates to demands from within the community. Looking across that entire landscape, what single issue around which the school board has some control are you most passionate about?
Gosh. The reality is, as a school board, we have very little control over any of those levers, right? So certainly the biggest challenge that faces all school districts in New Jersey is school funding, and one of the problems, of course, is that school funding year to year varies wildly. So when it comes to state aid, you've got a confluence of things. You've got the fact that the budget process is incredibly short. By the time you actually find out what your state aid numbers are, you have to turn things over to the county very quickly. You've got the fact that you don't know if it's going up or down. I mean, up is great, but even up is a struggle because you got to figure out what you're going to do with it. But down is terrible, and we've seen that in the last year when all of a sudden we were cut by 8%. So what we can do is advocate more for better state aid and more consistent state aid, and that those numbers are reliable.
Thanks, Chris. Jim, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, Chris is right. I mean, the challenge with for most boards is trying to balance the needs for the district and the budgets that we're given. You never want to have to cut, but it's inevitable. We've gone through ebbs and flows. We'll continue to go through ebbs and flows. But that's the challenge. I think the other part too, at least from my perspective, is we had a kind of a dogging issue last year with this grade point system. It went up and down. And I think, just personally, I think the way that was communicated just didn't fit right. And I think going forward, I'd like to try to do that differently, right? You learn through your mistakes, right? You learn through lessons. So I think when you have a community topic that's dividing, I think having them at very rigid board meetings is not the format to have them in. And I think I would rather try to see them in more of a forum, or more of an open communication, as opposed to people speaking on different sides. Thank you.
John.
Right. This was a question that was in the retrospect, and I gave very detailed answers in there. Can't do it in 60 seconds here, but we can't just rely on school funding or the state funding. What we have to be able to do is be proactive with our own resources here. There are a number of programs that could be implemented. There's ways that we could share services between the districts. I was in multiple shared service agreements with many districts. I know it's not an easy way to do things, and they work very hard, but it's something that does and save district money for districts. My answers are pretty detailed in the retrospect in there. I don't want to run out of time here and wait for that little placard to come back up. But there are bringing children back from out of district is another big thing. We're doing good programming. So I encourage you to read the retrospect, where I gave a very detailed answer on that.
Thanks, John. And Dave.
So I know, Scott, you said something that I'm passionate about. I'm going to veer off a little bit from the state funding. We all know that's an issue. Something that I'm really passionate about is safety. Kids cannot learn if they don't feel safe in school. And I think the district, along with the board, is doing a good job of putting those measures in, but we need to continue to improve on that. You know, kids have to, when they come in and enter our buildings, they have to feel safe, the staff needs to feel safe, community members need to feel safe. So something that I'm very passionate about, and I do it in my own school. We talk safety all the time. You know, two things that are the two most important to me are safety and student achievement. Well, you can't have student achievement without safety. So I think that's very important and something I'm very passionate about.
Thank you. All right, so what I did with the questions that were provided is I kind of chunked them into different topics or headings here. So the next section that we're going to talk about is participation. So the next question, and we'll start with you. Tell us about a recent school board meeting you attended and anything that stuck out for you about specific discussions.
Well, it's not even 30 days ago, so last, what was that, September's meeting, we just talked about coming back to school and how it was very call it uneventful for, you know, coming out of COVID. You had to deal with those transactions. It was nice to have sort of a normal back to school session. Again, we had that last year. I don't know, folks. I know there's board members out here. Last year we had it was a dogfight for those board members. I mean, we were here 3-4 hours at times. And you know, again, I'll say it again. I think one of the challenges with that is the way that went through. I think there's ways to improve that. But no, I mean, the nice thing about this year is it seems to be somewhat normal. So.
John?
So I've watched the board meetings online, been at my own board meetings multiple times in my own district. Don't always have an opportunity. I think the biggest thing, one of the issues that I saw was the grading scale. And that was something that I was near and dear to my heart, and I have strong feelings about the grading scales and what should be done and how they should be done. One of the things that I probably would have pushed for was keeping it at as it was, 93 to 100. One of the things I could talk about, how much time do I have? Another?
30 seconds.
Okay, so really quick, in 30 seconds I'll sum up. In about 2003, 2004, there was a report put out by the Department of Education talking about subgroups that were dropping out of college. And the biggest subgroup that dropped out of college at that time was females who had gotten straight A's in high school. And one of the things that I wouldn't want to see is a grade inflation, and then these young women go off to college, get B's, C's, or worse, and don't know how to handle and cope with it. So that was my reason for that.
Thanks, John. Dave?
Scott, can you repeat that question
Sure.
again, please?
Tell us about a recent school board meeting you attended and anything that stuck out for you about specific discussions.
So, again, I'll veer off. I really thoroughly enjoyed the bond referendum discussions. I thought Dr. Fizzicaro outlined everything that we needed to do. Focus groups, got everybody involved. The community had a real say in what was going on. And I enjoyed those discussions because again, we moved to this town for the schools, like all of us did. And I tell people all the time, the better your schools are, the better your property value is going to be. So to see what we did for academics, for what we did for the arts, for what we did for athletics, for what we did for basic maintenance of the school, all being encompassed in one of those, it was really fun. The discussions were long and hard, but it was very enjoyable to see, and to have it pass the way it did was great for our community.
Thanks, Dave. And Chris?
Yeah, I'll echo a little bit of what everybody else has said. I obviously am not currently serving on the school board, but I come to almost every meeting. And there's an interesting contrast between the way in which the public was engaged on the referendum question and the way the public was engaged on the grade scale question. And clearly, in terms of the grade scale, I don't think that the administration did a great job in terms of interacting with the community, but an excellent job in terms of interacting on the referendum, and the results prove that out. One of the problems is that school board meetings are incredibly formal settings where there's Robert's Rules of Order and things have a certain structure to them, and so it's very difficult to have really thoughtful conversations with the public I think there are opportunities for us to find other ways of engaging the public, whether it's through PTAs or individual meetings in school buildings, to try and do a better job of engaging, but formal board meetings are really hard to engage with the public.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, next question is, and you can step away if you wish to, you can step away from the schools specifically right now, but we just talked about your attendance and participation in a recent school board meeting. What about a community event? What community and or school district activities have you participated in recently? John, let's start with you on that one.
Well, I did coach here, 2003 till about 2006. I was the high school swim coach here. Participated here as an athlete as well, and then came back and coached the team, and been involved when my kids were older. I was listening to the stories about my child is 5, my child is in 3rd grade, my child is this. My youngest is 29. So the activities that we've been long since passed being with HTAA. But I was an HTAA coach. I was a swim coach here. I was active in the Strawberry School Fair. I heard people talking about that. I will brag and say that when I was a youngster and my father was the head of the Strawberry Dads, and I was involved with Marie Ely over there, that the parade, that the school fair did go on, dinners that went till into the evening time. So very proud resident, proud to be a community member.
Thanks, John. David, how about you?
Yes, so I'm a big sports guy. When our daughters, we have a freshman in college at Westchester and a junior here at Haddon Township. When they grew up, they played field hockey, basketball, and lacrosse. And I coached the basketball team for both daughters their entire time here. So I'm big with the community, trying to help out, again, give back. I was a coach, I just give back, volunteer my time, which was a lot. We practiced twice a week, we played on the weekends. So I do that, go to all the athletic events, football games and events that our daughters are playing in. Went to the fall music festival this past weekend. Very involved, I love Haddon Avenue, and love being involved with the community and doing things, again, giving back and showing the support of the community.
Jim, let's go to you next. Bouncing all over.
Me.
Well, I'm bouncing all over.
Oh, I like it.
It says here I get to do what I want.
So I get to see Dave Ritchie probably twice a week. Our daughters play field hockey together, so there's that. I was fortunate to work the gate at the HTEF fundraiser at the square with Chris Cook for 3 to 4 hours. I think we did that together.
Yep.
I saw Chris Cook at the boathouse, or they rocked the dock for and Mr. Kendall out there. So I love the town. I truly love the town, and I will continue to support the town any way I can. It's just something that again, I'll say this and it sounds good, but we did, what Dave mentioned, we did move here for the schools. I wanted my kids and have my kids involved in everything they can. It's just a sense of community. So whatever we can do to help, we can. I mean, it's as simple as hosting a pasta party for field hockey to, helping, sell tickets or put wristbands on people for fundraisers. So whatever we can do.
And Chris.
Jim's already stole my thunder. So I work the Ed Foundation, so I'm on the board of the Haddon Township Education Foundation. We had a big fundraiser on the square last weekend, where thankfully we raised about $6,000, which helps with, since 2017, the Ed Foundation's raised about $200,000 that's been put right back into classrooms. So I'm very proud of the work the Ed Foundation does. And then last event I attended was literally in Wilmington, Delaware. My daughter this year decided, my 9th grader started crew, and our crew program is amazing. And so we were down in Wilmington watching her row for the regatta.
All right. Next section we're going to talk about is safety. So a resident writes in, I am quite concerned about the installation of artificial turf on the sports fields. I know the budget passed with this item included, but I have since heard that the board is still investigating other possibilities. So this resident would like to know the candidate's positions on the installation of artificial turf and any of the health concerns that are associated with the use of this surface. And Dave, since you said safety back then, we're gonna start with you.
So, again, something I'm passionate about, sports and the turf. I love how Dr. Fisicharo put a group together to talk about what type of turf to put in. Again, my personal opinion is there's so many schools and so many youth programs in not only South Jersey, not only New Jersey, but in the country that have turf. It's the way that people are going, for many different reasons. So, yeah, let's talk about what best surface we can put in, but the turf needed to be in here. And I'm not too concerned on, people say, oh, you can get cancer from this, cancer from anything. The bottom line is we need our kids to play on surfaces that are conducive and that everybody can play on and everybody can share.
And Chris, how about you?
Sure. So, I am concerned about the turf. I think that's a fair and legitimate concern. Plastics and the possible negative health effects are real, and that's why I think it's, again, as Dave Ricci said, a good idea that we put a group together to sort of investigate that. But it's, I don't know. I don't know if there's a good, safe way to do it, honestly. I wasn't on the board at the time that the decision was made, but I'm enthusiastic that the group that's currently working on it is going to keep talking about it, and hopefully they can come up with the safest possible solution.
And John, how about you?
So, I have to agree with Jim on this one. Field overuse is a concern, and the safety of the fields. The costs are negligible. The artificial turf cost, or as opposed to maintaining fields over the course of the turf's life, basically negligible. The environmental impacts, we're right next to the creek, we're right next to here. It does have an impact that I'm concerned about. This isn't a recent issue. In 2002, and for anybody that wants to stay afterwards and look at it, in 2002 we had actually a town-wide committee that I was on, didn't mention that as far as the committee groups, that investigated. One of the things that we talked about was field rest and being able to have enough fields so that this year the field hockey, near and dear to this group's over here, plays on this field, following year plays on a different field. Shawnee, they practice, they go a different way, so they practice on the 50-yard line end to end, as opposed to practicing at the goal post. So there are ways other than using artificial turf.
And Jim.
So, my daughters played soccer. We were on the Rakino turf since they were young. That turf has been there for quite some time. I think, not discounting people's concerns, but that turf is close to 20 years old. Putting new turf in, I know there's concerns. I know science is coming to show varying things. But I think the amount of use those fields get and the amount of space the community needs, I think having the artificial turf is a community benefit. I think there's too many things that happen. I don't know if you've all been to when a field hockey game lets out or a soccer game lets out and the young kids are trying to play soccer at the bottom of their Rakino. You can't get around. You can't find a place to park. There's just too many demands for field space in the community, which I think is a good thing. I think you have no other choice but to put in artificial turf. And we'll do it the best way we can, the safest way we can, but I think it needs to be done.
All right, next question. And some of you in your opening statements may have hit on this a little bit, but I'm going to ask the question anyway, and if you feel that you're repeating yourselves, that's fine. I'm going to start this time. Chris, we're going to start with you this time.
Sure.
Being on the school board is about more than wanting the best for our children. What in your life has prepared you for all aspects of being on the board? Examples: financial, safety, educational, personnel, anything like that.
Sure. I really think, I started this process back when my daughter started in first grade. And I started coming to board meetings as a representative from the Edison PTA to sort of understand what was going on the school board. And I'd never been to a school board meeting before. And over time, got to learn more and more about what was going on, got to know a variety of the board members. And one of the things that I've been most interested in is school finance. And so I was lucky enough when I was elected to the school board to be able to join our Finance and Facilities Committee. And so I spent 2 years on that committee learning everything I possibly could about the way schools are funded, which, surprise, is insanely complicated. That's my take on joining the school board. I do want to see what's best for our kids, but yeah, I've been really interested in the school board for a long time.
Thanks, Chris. And John, how about you?
Everybody in my life has been a school teacher or been involved in some way. My father, my uncle, my brothers, my wife, my daughter. It's sort of the family business. I also have an MBA. I've had a great career as an administrator, improving test scores, cutting costs, making sure that the environment is exactly right for the students in there. I have a general ed certificate, a special ed certificate, a BA certificate, an school administrator certificate. I have all of that. I have the education and the knowledge and the experience to be able to be on a school board and be able to help with the decisions that get made.
Thanks, John. And Jim.
So, as mentioned, I'm the executive director of the Improvement Authority. I'm not going to give you my elevator speech because, quite frankly, you don't care. But the reality is that I have a background in public finance. I have a background in project management. Two things that, obviously with the referendum, I think it was $35 million that we just approved for construction. Those are big numbers for a small town. You need to have someone on the board who understands that process and understands where, at least my opinion, how these things happen, because our first referendum project didn't go as smoothly as it could have, and I don't want to see that happen with this referendum project. And then what Chris mentioned is public finance, and there's a lot of money that goes through the school, and I think we're at $41 million on an annual budget. So, and then not including the referendum dollars. So it's a lot of money, a lot of public dollars.
And Dave.
So I said in my opening statement, I joined the board because I wanted to give back to the community and always do what's best for kids. Been in education for 28 years. My wife's a teacher. My dad was a teacher. My uncle was a teacher. My aunt was a teacher. So we have that. My two sisters are teachers. I feel like I'm my cousin Vinny. But it's just, I just have a passion for education. I don't know, my wife and I don't know what we're gonna do when we retire, because it's been our life. And, we just, that's all we know how to do. Go into the classrooms and make a difference in kids' lives. So, that's why I joined the board. I love it, and, hoping that I can continue to do it.
All right, next one. John, we're going to start with you here. This is a little bit long, so if you need me to repeat it. As a parent, we always want what's best for our children. It's interesting, actually. I feel that there should be a maximum length of terms board members can serve. New ideas, new teams of people, new groups working together are all ways to promote growth in any organization. Do you feel the board members should be limited to a maximum number of years serving on the board to make way for new members and fresh ideas?
No, but that's why we have elections, so that people become stagnant. The voters have that right to vote them off of the board. So no, I really don't feel that there should be any sort of term limits for that. But I do know that board members need to continue to learn and be updated. That's committee meetings with the board meetings. They would bring us in and you rely on the administrators. What are you doing? What is the newest, latest thing? Going out and learning on their own, finding their own workshops. Reading right now is a hot topic. Everybody's hot on reading and the science of reading that's been going on. But truth be said, there's nothing new about it. It's been around for quite some time, right? The phonemic awareness, phonics, word study, fluency, comprehension, that's been around for a while, but it takes somebody to be able to sit there and say, where are we spending our money wisely. So no, I don't think there should be time limits, term limits.
Okay, thanks. Jim?
No, I mean, to echo what John said, you can always vote, not vote someone in, right? I mean, that's the beautiful part about this country is you have choices. With that being said, after COVID and after the grade point system, I don't know how much longer I have. I mean, it wears on you. I mean, it is tiring, it's taxing. You spend a lot of time together. I mean, I don't know if folks know how much time together we spend. There's at least one meeting a month that we have, and then there's a committee meeting that's at least one. That's at least 2 meetings a month, at least. I think during the last 6 meetings or 7 meetings, we probably met 3 or 4 times. And then throw a teacher negotiation on top of that. That's 4 meetings. I mean, it's a lot of work that people don't see. And it's truly, you have to love doing this, because if you didn't love it, you would just not do this. There's 1,000 other things other to do than this. So.
Thanks, Jim. Dave?
So I would say no to that answer, to that question. My biggest thing is if somebody wants to volunteer their time to help the school, why would you put a limit on that? Because it is volunteer. But on the other hand, we do, as board members, we need to grow and develop and make sure that we're learning it. You know, the panel's talked about being on, I've been on the Finance and Facilities Committee for 6 years. I love learning about that. Even though I'm superintendent, I don't have all the answers. So I love learning. It's like PD for me when I go to some of these meetings. So, it takes a special person to volunteer their time and have 2, 3, 4 meetings a month to do what's best for our school district. So, again, to reiterate, I would say no, especially if somebody wants to volunteer their time.
Thank you. And Chris?
Surprise, I'm also gonna say no. No, I do want to touch on a couple things that haven't been mentioned. So, being a school board member, for those who haven't done it, oftentimes it's not exactly what you think it is. In New Jersey, school board members are the only publicly elected officials that have mandatory training. You can literally be elected mayor and nobody gives you a rule book about how that happens. But school board members have to go through extensive training from New Jersey School Board Association. It takes time to get good at being a board member. And so I would not want to impose term limits at a time when experience really matters. So, and by the way, the current school board, almost all of it, other than John Kendall, the whole rest of the board has less than 10 years.
I think Marie's the longest one, and she's, yeah.
11.
Yeah, but after that, we made Dave or 10.
Right.
Jim, this one's going to be for you first. Under personnel, Haddon Township High School has a dedicated principal and 2 dedicated assistant principals to assist with the day-to-day operations of the high school. At the same time, 4 of the 5 elementary schools share a principal. Jennings and Story share one, and Strawbridge and Edison share another. In your opinion, how effective is sharing a principal for our youngest learners? What are some of the pros and cons of that arrangement?
Right, yes, the only one who doesn't have education. I'll just go from my experience, right? So being on the board is, I think, having the amount, and I'll use the word discipline just for lack of a better term, is there's more disciplinary things that happen with older kids than with younger kids. So I think you can be able to manage younger kids more effectively and efficiently and economically than you can with older kids, right? I think older kids, by definition, I'll use this word diplomatically, have a tendency to cause bigger problems than younger kids. So you're gonna need someone to manage that administration on that part. And I'm just using that as an example, right? I mean, there's other things education-wise that the principals do, but for the most part, the times when I had to deal with a principal was always for disciplinary actions, right? So, I mean, you don't really go to the principal's office because you're a really good kid. So, so that's just my short answer on that one. So.
All right, thanks, Jim. Dave.
So, you know, positive and negatives to everything. Where I work, I am actually the superintendent and principal. So I know what it's like to be, having a dual role, whether it's going to a different school or having a different role within the school. That's tough. It's a lot of work, but again, I enjoy it. So that's the tough part of it. And I'll piggyback on what Jim just said. Being at a high school where I was for 16 years, more things happen. Kids get older. The big topic now is cell phones. It's a very difficult thing in the high school. In the elementary school, I've been doing it for the last 5 years in both schools that I've been at. No cell phones, and the kids don't give us any problem. High school is a lot different. So there are positives, negatives to that. The positive being that you are saving some money to do that, but a good administrator can take care of both those jobs.
Chris?
Sure. Look, I think it would be great if all 5 elementary schools had their own principals, but it's expensive. It's a lot of overhead, and in my experience, my daughter came up through Edison, which shares a principal with Strawbridge. In the entire 6 years that she was at Edison, I never felt like we were getting short shrift at all. The principals that we've hired so far have all been fantastic, and I have no issue with that at all. In terms of, if you wanted to hire more principals, I would really suggest looking at putting the money into school counselors, math interventionists. There's more things we can do than creating more administration within the district.
Chris and John.
I mean, I started off by talking about shared services and streamlining support, so, sharing principals, especially at the elementary school, is not a problem that I see. As to piggyback off of what Jim and Dave said, high school, those are adult problems. They're young adults, and whatever trouble they get into, it's an adult-sized problem, so there needs to be extra supports here. But no, I don't see it as being a problem to have shared services or shared principals between two buildings, especially 2 buildings that are nearby.
Thanks, John. Dave, we're going to start with you on this one. So under the heading of equity, as a parent of children, this is Haddon Township parent, as a parent of children in the G&T program, I tend to feel that academics, especially for grades K to 5, are severely overlooked. It was one of the first programs to be cut after only being incorporated as a program for K to 5 after 2 years. What will you do as a board member to make sure G&T qualified students have an equitable experience in the Haddon Township School District?
So, listen, I think, I call it GATE. GATE is very important, okay? But all the other subjects, everything in education is important. So being a administrator, I understand that they're trying to figure out what's going to have the least impact on the kids. Of course, you want to have all the programs that you can, but money sometimes does not allow that. So you have to figure out. You have to. Dr. Fiscaro, the superintendent, has to rely on his administrative team and teachers to figure out, all right, what areas can we look to maybe cut, or you don't want to cut programs and things like that, but it's very difficult to figure out and have everything you want for kids, but also take stuff away if it financially doesn't agree. So it's a tough call, but as administrators, we have to do that and figure out what, maybe there's another example that we can do. So it's hard. So.
Thanks, Dave. Chris.
Sure. So for anybody not paying attention or that doesn't know, G&T, gifted and talented. So a little bit of school district jargon. So I think part of the issue always is that there's never enough money. We would love to have an even more robust gifted and talented program than we already have, and the struggle is just that we're making all these choices all the time about how to spend money. There are state standards that we have to meet, And we're struggling to keep, I mean, especially coming out of COVID, we're still dealing with kids who have lagged behind as a result of not being in school and remote learning. I would love to be able to do more for our kids that are excelling, and it's a real struggle to be able to find the resources in order to do that, and hopefully we can do that with some additional funding over time. But having to meet the minimum standards means that we're really focused on those kids too. So.
Thanks, Chris. John?
In my role as Director of special education isn't only for the classified students who are in great need, but also the other extreme that are the gifted and talented students. So this is something that's near and dear to my heart. We do K1, 2, really there is no formal program for gifted and talented. Usually that's something that can be done within in the classroom with the like as a tier 1 intervention with the teacher, right? It's a mandated program that we have to have, and it is something that when you look at our test scores, we're doing great, right? We have 50% plus of our students meeting or exceeding the expectations, but our number for exceeding the expectation is relatively small, 5, 7, 8%, depending on the grade level. So when you talk about those extremes, the extremes influence the means. If we focus on that gifted and talented program, other children would be coming up along there too, who would be rising to that occasion and meeting those expectations. So, really?
Not lying.
Stopped in your tracks.
Would you take away time if I talked more? Next question.
Think of it for your closing statement.
Hey, Jim.
No, I mean, as everyone mentions, it's tough to try to take away a program. I think we were going through the cuts last year. Someone mentioned that we have to have a gifted and talented program, so I want to say that we're exploring options for that. Just in my own personal part of the challenges with being on the school board is that elementary school we seem to do good, right? Elementary school, it seems like there's, and then all of a sudden we hit this vacuum with middle school, and then we're not really catching kids up until literally midway through high school. I would rather see resources spent in those middle school years where there is that vacuum, where our grades plummet. I mean, you know, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but you know, we don't do very well in math. We do okay in English. So to have those things, I personally would rather see those resources at the middle school level than at the elementary school level. So.
Thank you. Chris, I'm going to start with you on this one. What does equity mean to you, and what do you see as the equity issue most important to address should you be elected to serve on the Board of Education?
Sure. Look, equity is it's not a destination, it's more of a mission, right? We're just trying to make sure that we're paying attention to what's going on in our schools and trying to make sure that everybody has an equal opportunity to succeed, and we're making the best of the kids that we have. There are always going to be some struggles, but the trick internally is making sure that we're really looking at the data, we're making sure that we're measuring things on a regular basis, that we're talking to teachers, that we're talking to parents, that we're getting that feedback, and we're taking every opportunity we can to make the opportunities as available to everybody as we can.
Thanks, Chris. Next up, John.
Well, the equity issue, I think in our town, when you look at our test scores, you can see that those underserved populations are the ones that aren't really doing well on our test scores. Again, 30% or so are meeting or exceeding expectations. And when I talked earlier about the extremes influencing the means, if we focus our attention on making sure that the adequate instruction is done, and that proper supports are in place, not unlike what Jim was saying, and we raise that up, that all of a sudden that we can make for a more equitable distribution of students in our AP classes, our honors programs. So we have to give the proper academic supports.
Thanks, John. Jim.
I'll just, from a board member's perspective, I think we always want to just make sure that we hear all sides, right? I mean, that's the challenge with equity, at least in my opinion, is that there's folks that are represented and there's folks that are underrepresented. And it's tough because a lot of the time as a board, we look at, it is literally 30,000 feet. I mean, it's not we've hardly ever get to a granular level where it gets down to, we're making those small policies. I mean, it's all the management policies that are in place. I mean, right now, I think the administration is doing a good job about trying to bring in hard topics to have conversations about. There's training associated with it. The superintendent seems to be addressing it. You know, you're never going to get a perfect score, but it seems like there's things that are happening at the administration level that continue to put us in a successful spot.
Thanks, Jim. And Dave.
So I you know, to echo what Jim said, I think, again, being in this a long time, I think our district is doing a great job of equity and not only treating people fairly, but giving people equal opportunity. There's many workshops that these teachers go through. There's things that the kids go through. This challenge day that's coming up. Just the opportunity that our students and staff get on the equity level is, in my opinion, very, very good. Could it be better? Of course, anything can be better, but they're addressing it. I think Dr. Fizzicaro and his staff, his administrative staff and his teachers have done a great job of doing that. Of course, we can continue to improve, but I think they're doing a great job. They're addressing it, and they're making people feel comfortable. I talked to a lot of people in town, and everybody feels pretty good about what the direction it's going in. So.
So, John, we're going to start with you on this one. As a Board of Education member, one of your primary responsibilities is to ensure that all students and their families feel welcome, safe, and valued in our schools, regardless of your own personal beliefs. Excuse me. How will you engage with families whose views of diversity and equality differ from your own?
I mean, that's why I was a successful administrator for 19 years, because I was able to sit at a meeting and be honest with people. Not always did we agree, not always did we see eye to eye, but in the end, we always agreed on what was best for their child and how we were going to improve their education. I could tell just a real funny story. I have time. My wife got a call once on Sunday afternoon, and she was asked by somebody. She said, "Hey, is your husband John Lavelle?" My wife said, "Yeah, why?" And she said, "Well, I'm working as an advocate in the district, and these people said this would have never happened if John Lavelle was here." And the advocate said, "Why would he have just caved and given you whatever you wanted?" And she said, "No, but I would have never been treated like this." You know, as long as you're honest and people know that you're following that same direction, no matter what your differences are, you will come together and realize that it's for their child that you're working towards.
Thanks, John. Jim.
This is probably not the greatest answer, but we don't, at the board, we don't have conversations about individual kids, and honestly, it's not what the board is set up to do, right? Our job is to provide direct oversight to the administration, so we want to make sure the administration is welcoming. It has nothing to do with me as a board member, right? I mean, the parents is never going to come to me, right? We'll see each other at the grocery store, you're going to complain, but at the end of the day, everything has to flow through the administration. So our job as the board is to make sure they're doing their job, and they're going out and making sure that the families are welcome, and that they're being accepted in the community. And when you hear that things aren't happening to that, you have to take action to do it. But again, it goes back to what the role of the board is. The role of the board is to provide administration oversight. So I personally never want to have interaction with a parent unless it's just a friendly interaction. Because when the parents do come to a board meeting, 9 times out of 10, it is not because they're happy with the board.
True. Dave.
Scott, can you just repeat
Sure.
that again? I want to make sure.
I'm losing track myself here. As a Board of Education member, one of your primary responsibilities is to ensure that all students and their families feel welcome, safe, and valued in our schools. How will you engage with families whose views of diversity and equality differ from your own?
So I'll take a page out of one of my philosophies as an administrator. The biggest, most important thing you have to do is listen. So you listen to what their concerns are, and then to piggyback off what Jim said, bring it to the superintendent or the administration and say, hey, here's some things that are going on in the community that people are saying and not happy about. You might want to just take a look at it and address it. I would appreciate that as an administrator, as a superintendent, if somebody came to me and said, hey, you know, this is going on or this is going on. Listen to what they're saying and then react and be proactive about it, but react to it and make it a better situation, because I said in the beginning, safety was important. Not only physical safety, but psychological safety. Kids and people have to feel comfortable letting their kids off to school, bringing their kids to school every day. So the biggest thing for me would be to listen and then bring it back to the administration, superintendent administration, and rectify a situation.
And Chris?
Sure, I'll essentially say much of what, piggyback on what Dave said. The reality is, Jim said, again, the school board is really just providing oversight for the school district to make sure that the school district is well run. Do we have interactions with the public in times when parents have an issue? Absolutely. I've had any number of conversations, even though I've only served so far 3 years on the board, knock on wood, 3 more. The reality is, because I come to every board meeting, I've had lots of conversations with neighbors and friends who ask me questions, and I always say, look, you need to start with if there's an issue in a school building, you need to start with the classroom teacher, then you need to talk to the school principal, then you need to talk to the superintendent, and if you don't get satisfaction at that point, you bring it to the school board. Otherwise, like I said earlier, school board meetings are terrible places to try to solve problems.
Thanks, Chris. We're getting toward the end here. Here we go. Jim, we're going to start with you on this one. Under social media, for better or worse, social media continues to be a driving force in many communities. This community is no different. How, if at all, do you anticipate board participation to impact what you post on social media?
Could you repeat that last part?
Sure. How, if at all, do you anticipate Board of Education participation to impact what you post on social media?
What I post on social media? Well, I've learned doing this over 10 years that I stay away from that. That's like a powder keg. I mean, there is very, we get diplomatic as possible. In my opinion, not a lot of positive things happen on social media regarding Board of Education. And I'm not saying that as a negative. I just think there's a lot of folks that are very heavily influenced, almost like beer muscles when it comes to social media, and they feel empowered. 9 times out of 10, they never come out, they never come to a meeting, they never really hear what, it's just fuel for the fire. I try not to govern through social media. I think it's a very hard way to manage anything. You know when something's a problem when you hear it, when someone's repeating it, not just going out on social media. But the answer to that question is I keep my social media and my Board of Education totally separate.
Dave.
So I do not have any personal social media. Social media that I do have is Instagram and Facebook through our school, because I'm a big believer in showcasing our students and staff in a positive light to the community. So I do not get involved with any social media. Again, being a superintendent, I think it's very important for me to not be involved in any of that personal stuff. But to the Instagram and Facebook, to me, are a great way to showcase your students and staff, and that's what I do. I'm not involved in any of that. When I'm done being an administrator, I'm going to take my phone, and I'm going to throw it out, and I'm going to get a flip phone, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. But in all honesty, I don't get involved in any of that. I know what's going on because I talk to people, but I'm a big positive guy, and everything I do through social media is school-related in a positive way.
Thanks, Dave. Chris.
Yeah, New Jersey School Board Association training in your first year when you get elected to the school board, they spend a lot of time telling you all of this, that you really don't engage on social media. It's not good. First of all, from a policy perspective, board members, it's a very fine line to engage with the public as a board member to talk about anything having to do with the school district, because outside of a board meeting, we're not actually board members anymore. Do you know what I mean? So it's you can't start representing the board or talking about the board as if you're representing it in any kind of substantive way. And I know there's a lot of, often because social media can be, there can be a very robust community created, and people go to social media for answers to questions. All too often, I just direct people, like, this is a very easy, your question could be easily, just pick up the phone, call the board office, they'll give you the answer. It's very straightforward, but trying to source that off social media is terrible.
Chris and John.
Yeah, having worked in schools, I mean, I have a Facebook account because my children did, and I wanted to monitor. Same with Instagram. But otherwise, yeah, it's not really for me. I have other things to do besides to go on there, but it's a real dangerous spot to be. I can tell you, just, I have more time, right? Okay, I can tell you that, I don't know. So, I can tell you that at one point in time, I actually didn't hire a speech therapist, because after I interview somebody, I look at their Instagram postings, and what she had posted on her Facebook and Instagram was very public and very inappropriate, even for a 22-year-old who wanted to work in a school. So she didn't get the job.
In Haddon Township on social media, you have to immediately go, if you hear a boom, we have to go to Facebook to find out what the noise was, right? 612 comments later, still nobody knows what the noise was. Right, last question before your closing arguments. Dave, we're gonna start with you. It's not something I am personally familiar with, but I'll read the question. The New Jersey Project is a statewide organization whose website states, change started with two normal moms that became frustrated with the tyranny their children were subjected to by the state. Now that we are a union of parents from all over New Jersey protecting childhood for our children. Each year, the New Jersey Project supports or endorses candidates in school board elections around the state. If the New Jersey Project endorsed you as a candidate, how would you respond? Would you accept the endorsement? We said, Dave, that's you.
Great question. I don't know anything about it either. Something I'll never do is try to snowball somebody. And, you know, like I tell our students in Stanford, if I don't know the answer, I'm gonna tell you I don't know the answer. I don't know this project, New Jersey Project, so I wouldn't want anybody that I don't know endorsing me, whether it's, even if it's positive. I just don't, I don't know that. I want people that I know and feel comfortable with to be able to endorse me, you know, for the right reasons. So, to be honest with you, I don't know the project. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but that's something that I'm very passionate about as well. Being truthful and honest. When I don't know something, I'm going to tell people I don't know the answer. So,
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Chris.
The short answer is no. I'm not really out there looking for endorsements from any groups out there. I really prefer the support of my fellow neighbors and folks in town, so no.
Okay. John?
Well, I actually happen to be endorsed by them. I don't know a thing about them, and when I found out, I sent an email saying, how did you know about me? Please remove me. I don't know anything about you. And it's a mysterious organization because I got no email back from any of them. I might still be up on their website as being endorsed, but I don't know how or why.
Okay. Thanks, John. And Jim?
Much like Chris said, being on this side of the table, it's a very interesting experience. I think that these two guys are winning the sign battle, right? So there's more signs about town. As Chris mentioned, you can have state organizations. This is all, it gets, we'll call it noise, right? It's just, it's chatter, right? At the end of the day, you just want to have support from whoever you want to be. Whoever the best candidate is for this town is what you want, right? That's all at the end of the day what this all shakes out. People want to make something out of nothing. The reality is that you have, from what I understand, you have very little control of some of these folks just saying you're accepted or not accepted. I wouldn't want any part of it. I mean, it just, to me, I would rather, I would rather go to the Acme and have you say what a bad job I did at the board meeting than go to the, so that's just how that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years, so.
All right, we have come to that last part of the meeting, where you have closing statements. I'm gonna start, we do have a statement that I believe I was supposed to read at the beginning, but I'll do it now, from Mark Henley, who could not be with us tonight. So I'm gonna start with this statement, and then I'll give each of you a chance to just sum up, make a closing statement yourselves. So this is from Mark Henley. I truly do apologize for my absence this evening. I had some work conflicts that will not be an issue when I'm in a position to serve my community. We need to ensure to our youth that the most strategic way to learn and grow is to make mistakes that are converted to steps that can be followed together, so we can reach each level as one drum, one sound. I believe the moment we acknowledge that there is no perfect way to educate, but there are endless ways to achieve a goal, and there are countless ways to thrive, but the youth of today need our support beyond a structure to leap the obstacles ahead with no limits. That's from Mark. Let's see where we were here. Chris.
Sure. So thank you everybody for coming out tonight. I know it's a school night and everybody's got lots of things to do, so I appreciate that anybody's willing to learn more about the candidates, all four of us. So the most important thing is that everybody be able to make an informed decision when they go into the voting booth. So thank you for coming out. As I said at the beginning, I've been involved with the school district since my daughter started in the school district, and I continue to do that. Win, lose, or draw, you'll still see me at every board meeting. I'll either be on one side of the table or the other, and I'll continue to be involved in PTA, and I'll continue to be involved in the Ed Foundation. I hope I can earn your vote tonight, and look forward to serving you for another 3 years. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. John.
So as I said, I'm new to this for being a board member, but I do have a track record of performing, being a good administrator, making great strides in the districts I've worked in. Worked in a district, was a principal of the Blue Ribbon School, worked at a different district, Title I, and supervisor and principal, and made them a lighthouse district. So, and which is not, which is great. But also turned around a school that was in comprehensive status with the Department of Education, moved them in 3 years out of comprehensive status. So that ability to move everybody forward has been something that I've been able to do for a number of years. Like I said, I started out in 1984 as a middle school math teacher, taught at Riverfront State Prison, as a matter of fact, even there. So I've been all the way through, like I said, as an administrator for many different districts. Real quick, I do want to go back to the gifted and talented, because it is something that's near and dear to my heart. That we had a budget problem one year, and one thing I was able to do was to contract out with the IRC. And again, it goes back to all of those issues that we talked about budgeting, but EARC was able to come in 1 day a week and work with multiple grade levels, and that was the way we solved that issue until we were able to finalize the budget a little bit better. So again, thank you for having me here this evening, and I hope that I can serve on the board for you.
Jim.
Someone once told me you don't make friends being on the school board, right? So you learn that quickly. You learn very quickly on this side of the table how sensitive and how passionate people are about education and how about this town. I've made 1,000 decisions that I thought were correct. I made a few that were wrong, and people called me out on it. That's the one nice thing about being in this community is you hear back from people. You'll hear the Facebook post. You have to get a thick skin to be on this side of the table, because it is a very challenging spot. It takes a lot to learn. It takes a lot to understand the nuances and the subtleties of the community. Because for every cut that we have a group saying, we'll support this, and then there's a group that says we won't support that. There's never a great answer. There's never you want to just do the best for the kids. One of my proudest moments was 2 years ago. I handed my daughter their diploma. I'd like to hand my youngest her daughter her diploma, and just continue to make the school district as best as possible. I think I do it for the right reasons. I try to be vocal during the board meetings. I try to ask questions. I try to represent the town the best I can. If I'm fortunate enough to get reelected, great. That's it, thank you.
Jim and Dave.
So, thanks again for being here tonight. When I was 18 years old, I started volunteering as a high school basketball coach. And somebody asked me, why did you volunteer? Why aren't you getting paid? I said, because I love kids, I wanna be around kids, and I wanna do a great job and do what's best for them, and hopefully that'll lead me to somewhere else. And it has. I absolutely love being on the board. I love volunteering my time. I love giving back, and I think I have a lot to give. As I said in my interview, when I got my superintendent job, I've had every position there is in education, from an aide to a substitute, to a teacher, to an assistant coach, to a head coach, to a vice principal, to a principal, to a superintendent. So I know what everybody goes through, and again, love being part of this town. We've lived here for 17 years, and we'll continue to live here. And there's no better thing to do in your life than to volunteer your time and give back to your community and give back to people. I read in all my leadership things that I read, it always talks about, and you can attest to this, Scott, it always talks about giving back. What are you doing for somebody else? Somebody taught you what to do. Now, what are you gonna do to help them? One of the greatest things I love in education is being a mentor. I was a mentor to teachers, to administrators, to you name it, and it's just a wonderful feeling to be a part of that. And I didn't get paid for that. It was just something that I went out of my way to do. And volunteering, I think, is very important, and tells a lot about a person. Thank you.
Thank you. So that is it for the questions and the statements. I just want to thank all of our candidates this evening, and certainly all of you for coming out this evening to be part of this and to listen to the important messages for those who are running. I think without question what you saw in this forum is better than anything we've seen on national TV during this election season. We had no mentions of eating dogs and cats. That's always a win. Right? So
I forgot.
Yeah. So thank you, and for everybody in the audience, if you just put your hands together for the folks. We appreciate you like putting your name out there. It is, I will tell you firsthand, it's not an easy job.